Welcome to the deep dive. You're here, I imagine, because you want to get straight to the heart of a topic. Yeah,
Cut through the clutter.
exactly. We take a bunch of sources, pull out the key stuff so you get informed fast without, drowning in information.
Mm-hmm.
Today, we're digging into something pretty foundational in strategic thinking. Chapter 3 of Sun Tzu's The Art of War. It's called Attack by Stratagem.
A classic.
It really is. So, our mission here is to unpack the main ideas in this chapter and explore how they might still apply today, maybe in ways people don't expect.
And we're looking at the Project Gutenberg version, right?
Yeah.
So that includes some useful translator notes and historical context, too.
That's the one. Gives us a bit more background. Okay, so Chapter 3, Attack by Stratagem. What's the first big thing that jumps out?
Well, right off the bat, Sun Tzu hammers home the sheer cost and danger of getting bogged down in long wars.
Right, he mentioned the expenses back in Chapter 2.
Exactly.
Mhm.
He laid the groundwork there, talking about, 1,000 ounces of silver per day,
Yeah.
potentially. But here, it's not just the money.
Okay.
He's talking about how drawn-out campaigns they dull your weapons,
Yeah.
literally and figuratively.
Yeah.
Dampen morale,
Yeah.
exhaust your strength.
Drains the treasury, too, obviously.
Hugely. And then there's the kicker. While you're tied up and weakened, other rivals, maybe ones you weren't even worried about, see an opportunity.
Ah, so it creates secondary threats.
Precisely. It's a really dangerous state to be in. The whole system becomes fragile.
And he has that line, doesn't he, about speed versus delay. Something like, stupid haste can happen, but cleverness is never found in long delays.
Yes, that's such a key point. It's not saying rush stupidly,
Mm.
but dragging things out is never actually clever warfare because of the strain it puts on the state.
Okay.
And this ties directly into maybe the most famous idea from this chapter, which comes super early on.
Mm.
The best thing, the absolute supreme excellence, is to break the enemy's resistance without fighting.
Win without the battle. Sounds ideal, but hard.
It's the peak of skill, according to Sun Tzu.
So how do you even aim for that? Does he get into the how? I remember the chapter moves into planning and thinking ahead.
It does. It connects right back to what he said at the end of chapter 1 about calculation.
Ah, the many calculations lead to victory idea.
Exactly that. Many calculations mean victory, few mean defeat, none mean, well, you're definitely losing. He's saying you have to do the math, metaphorically speaking, before you commit.
So think it through.
Thoroughly. And he applies this directly to sieges. Think about attacking a walled city. The prep work is immense.
Yeah, he mentions months for shields and wagons and building mounds.
Months, it takes ages. So imagine investing all that time and resource, and then the general gets impatient.
Loses his cool.
Yeah, and launches the attack too soon. Like sending ants swarming up a wall, he says. It's disastrous.
Yeah.
Waste lives, waste resources. It underscores why that planning, that forethought is so vital. Don't rush into poorly prepared assaults.
Patience and planning. It seems like it's not just about having the bigger army then. It's about being smarter.
That's the core message here. Strategic superiority trumps sheer numbers. He says it point blank. To subdue the enemy's army without battle is the acme of skill.
The peak, the best you can do.
Right. Now, he does admit, okay, sometimes you have to attack a fortified city. It's the lowest form of war, but maybe you have no choice.
A last resort.
Exactly. But his preference is clearly to outmaneuver, to outthink. Attack where they're unprepared, strike when they don't expect it.
Okay, and what about if you do have more soldiers? Like say you outnumber them 2-1.
Ah, interesting point. He suggests if you have that kind of advantage, consider dividing your forces.
Dividing. Doesn't that go against the usual military wisdom of concentrating force? I think I saw a note about that, maybe from a commentator like Tumu.
You're right, Tumu did initially raise an eyebrow at that. His concern was exactly what you said. Splitting your force could weaken both parts. Makes sense.
Yeah, seems risky.
But the counter-argument, pushed by others like Chao Kong, is that it's not just simple division. It's about creating tactical flexibility, a dilemma for the enemy.
How so?
Well, one part of your army engages the enemy head-on, holds their attention. The other part maneuvers, maybe hits their flank or rear, creates a diversion.
Ah, forces them to react.
Exactly. They have to choose,
Mm.
deal with the main threat and expose their flank, or turn to meet the diversion and potentially weaken their main front.
Hmm.
It's using numbers smartly, not just bludgeoning them. It's about controlling the situation, making them respond to you.
Making them split their focus. I get it. Okay, so smart maneuvering, planning, and it all seems to rest on one fundamental idea he keeps coming back to.
Which is,
Knowing the enemy and knowing yourself That feels like the absolute foundation.
It really is. He spells it out so clearly at the end of the chapter, doesn't he?
Yep. Know both, and you're safe. Know yourself, but not the enemy. It's 50-50. No, neither.
And you're doomed in every battle.
Yeah.
It's not just a catchy phrase, it underpins everything. All the planning, the strategy, the intelligence gathering, it's all aimed at achieving that knowledge. You need an honest look at your own strengths, weaknesses, resources, and a clear picture of your opponent. Without that, you're essentially gambling.
Makes total sense. Okay, so chapter 3 is really hammering home. Avoid long fights, plan meticulously, be smarter, not just stronger, and know the whole picture, yourself included. Now, how does this ancient wisdom land today? I mean, we're not dealing with chariots and feudal lords anymore.
You know, it's amazing how relevant it still feels. That core idea about avoiding long, drawn-out conflicts, arguably even more critical now.
Why's that?
Think about the global economy, how interconnected everything is. A prolonged conflict, whether military or even like a major trade war, has massive ripple effects. Huge financial burdens, sure, but also social disruption, instability.
And it creates openings for others, like Sun Tzu warned.
Absolutely. Think about intense business competition, too. Two giants slug it out in a price war or a long legal battle. They both get weakened, drain resources, and suddenly a smaller, more agile competitor can sneak in and grab market share. It's the same principle.
That's a good analogy. What about strategic superiority over numbers?
We see that play out all the time. Look at asymmetrical warfare. Smaller groups using technology or unconventional tactics to counter much larger forces.
Right, or insurgents against a conventional army.
Or even cyber warfare.
Yeah.
A small group of skilled hackers can potentially cause massive disruption to a huge corporation or even a government. That's absolutely attacking unpreparedness and striking when unexpected in a modern context.
So the tools change, but the strategy of finding weak points and using surprise is constant.
It seems to be. And that know your enemy and yourself principle. It's fundamental in today's world.
How so? In business?
Definitely in business. Understanding your competitors, yes, but also market trends, technological shifts, potential disruptions, and having a brutally honest assessment of your own company's capabilities, culture, and blind spots.
Okay.
Same in geopolitics. Intelligence, cultural understanding, economic factors, knowing your own limits and strengths on the world stage. Without that 360-degree view, you're navigating blind, whether you're launching a product or negotiating a treaty.
And the need for planning, avoiding impulsive moves?
Timeless. Absolutely timeless, whether you're a general, a CEO, or just making big life decisions. Thinking through consequences, not just reacting emotionally.
So it really boils down to thinking strategically, seeing the long game, and using knowledge to gain an edge smartly, not just through brute force. Okay, before we wrap this deep dive on Chapter 3, what's next? What does Chapter 4 get into?
Chapter 4 shifts gears slightly. It's called Tactical Dispositions. And the focus moves to the state of your forces before a battle even begins. How does an army that's going to win look different from one that's going to lose even before they clash?
Interesting. So setting yourself up for success beforehand.
Exactly. Sun Tzu talks about making your own position invincible, essentially, and then waiting patiently for the enemy to show a vulnerability. He argues the outcome is often decided before the fighting starts.
Wow.
Yeah, and he introduces these 5 factors linked to military method, starting with things like measuring space and ending with, well, victory itself. It's about controlling the conditions of the fight.
Sounds like another fascinating layer to unpack. Okay, so wrapping up our look at Chapter 3, Attack by Stratagem. Key things for you, the listener, to take away. Avoid getting stuck in costly, prolonged struggles.
Always prioritize planning and deep understanding before acting.
Aim for strategic advantage, smart moves, maybe even deception over just trying to overwhelm opponents.
And that cornerstone.
Yeah.
Know your enemy, yes, but know yourself just as well. Critical.
Hopefully this deep dive gives you a solid grasp of those core ideas.
And maybe leaves you with a question to think about.
Yeah.
How might these principles, avoiding those long struggles, prioritizing strategy over brute force, apply to a challenge, big or small, that you're facing right now?
Where could a more strategic, less confrontational approach work better for you? Definitely something to chew on.
For sure.
We hope you found this valuable. Feel free to mull over these ideas, maybe even go back to Sun Tzu yourself. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.